With the endless war raging for 40 years and all three superpowers fighting on multiple fronts, one thing that's often overlooked is the navies of these mighty warring factions. We see endless battles on the land with troops, tanks, and monstrosities brawling every day and night, but what horrors lurk on the waves and beneath them? First, some will wonder, are navies as important in the world of the forever winter, with massive drones and huge aircraft being more available? Well, with Eurasia and Euruska launching an invasion through the Pacific into North America, it would require major supply chains to keep the front ready for battle. So in terms of just logistics, the sheer amount more you can move by sea than air is staggering. If we take some examples from our own time, which makes sense, as a lot of vehicles and weapons in the forever winter are based off today's. First, the Antonov AN-225 is the largest cargo plane ever produced, being able to carry a record weight of 253.82 tons, which was 5 main battle tanks as cargo. This is impressive, but compared to just the standard cargo ships, which can carry around 165,000 tons, even some of the largest can carry 240,000 tons, so the average cargo ship can carry 652 times more than the largest cargo plane ever produced. And with the average cargo plane only being able to carry around 140 tons, but this ranges quite a bit, the average cargo ship is actually able to carry 1,178 times more than the average cargo plane. And obviously, with the Forever Wind having a more advanced tech and automation, we could see even larger cargo vessels, which would make this the amount more you can carry by ship than air jump even higher, which is just insane levels of difference. To deal with an increase in ship size, we would see supermassive ports to load and unload these ships chock full of resources. Can you imagine a vessel that carries 1,000,000 tons of supplies in a single ship? This could keep the entire front going for maybe a week in one trip. And yes, I say a week. To put it into perspective, the German army on the Eastern Front in World War II was using around 9 to 15,000 tons of supplies a day on average. And in the Forever War, we have an untold amount of combatants and machines being fed into a meat grinder daily. Their supply use could be in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of tons a day. It's an absolutely colossal amount. It's kind of hard to even put that into your mind, but entire cities worth of resources just gobbled up and churned out at each other in bombs, bullets, and death. It is quicker by air than ship, but that's a lot more aircraft needed to match even a single cargo vessel. Then we need to factor in the size of the objects that can be transported. As by air, you have to disassemble many things to fit them in the body of the aircraft, but ships provide a lot more room to maneuver. So imagine something like a mech or a Titan which could be placed on a ship hull, and as soon as it arrives in port, it can be powered up and moved to the front. Whereas if done by aircraft, you'd have to reassemble them, which kind of takes the advantage of speed away somewhat. These cargo vessels would move in convoys for safety, as it allows far more ships to be defended with less resources. For instance, 10 cargo ships moving together with escorts such as submarines, surface vessels and drones is far more economic than having to protect each individual vessel separately. It's important to note that having smaller cargo ships can be useful, so it reduces the risk of losses to attacks. So 20 50,000 ton ships is harder to destroy than 10 100,000 ton ships. And it means that a loss of a single vessel is far less damaging to that military and the supply chain as a whole. But using ships does provide many challenges. The routes alone would be treacherous, with large amounts of supporting warships needed to keep them safe. With the largest naval theatre of the war being the Pacific, with Eurasia and Euruska having to transport tens if not hundreds of thousands of tons of supplies a day to keep the frontline troops well supplied. And Europa would not simply be letting them do this unhindered. This opens up to what naval assets would be deployed for combat in the naval operations of the Forever War. A major factor would be the use of naval and aerial drones. We have seen these used in recent conflicts to great effect, and with the advanced technology in the Forever War, they would only become more lethal. Naval drones might be something similar to the Magora V, which has confirmed to have sunken ships. These are able to carry large amounts of explosives that can easily knock out a mid-sized vessel. And with the total war economies of all three superpowers, hundreds or even thousands of these styles of drones might be sent in a single day to overwhelm shipping lanes and defending naval assets. If these are combined with submersible drones that are harder to detect, and may even lay waiting on the seabed until the opportune moment to strike, at which point you have hostile drones coming from the surface and beneath you, and a single hit could mean the loss of vital weapons, equipment, cyborgs, or a major warship. Then you have to factor in aerial drones. We've seen these recently used in Yemen with cargo shipping sunk and even advanced naval vessels being threatened and damaged by said drones. And with the Forever War's more advanced aircraft, we would see these become even more useful. Just look at something like the dead drop bombers, all the way down to the smaller European drones. You could easily convert any of these drones to carry explosives or anti-ship missiles, and the dead drop bombers could even drop sea mines. This increases the threat to naval vessels massively, and means you need anti-air based weapons on ships plus air support to secure your shipping lanes. And drones wouldn't just be deployed from the land by soldiers. With the Forever Winter's very independent AI, we would see drones carried in various forms, with ship-based carriers that can deploy large amounts of aerial drones and even naval drones. These would be fantastic in attack and defensive scenarios, being mobile and able to react to the changing strategic situation. The main downside is that they're large targets that require supporting vessels and systems such as anti-air, anti-missile and anti-torpedo weapons and measures to keep them safe. But if they're fully automated or require very few human crew, then the amount of drones they could carry would be huge. It would change carrier warfare from today's standards. It's not just ships that could be drone carriers. We would see submarine-style carriers as well that would mainly carry submersible and surface-based drones that you could deploy when underwater. But there's no reason it couldn't surface to deploy light aerial drones. And if these drones are watertight, you could even release them whilst underwater, and once they reach the surface, the drones could take flight and attack their targets. They would also be invaluable as reconnaissance to expand the submersible search radius. And being a submersible would give it far better stealth capabilities and the chance to launch surprise attacks from the prying eyes of the enemy's recon ships and drones. But submarines themselves would face massive threats in the terms of countermeasures such as minefields that would be smart mines so they can patrol and identify what the targets are, and obviously hostile submarines themselves are a major threat to any submarine. Drones, even the more advanced types, normally don't have great range, so they would be tethered by their operational range to the ships or bases that are located along their routes. As many drones are valuable to the superpowers, and more advanced reconnaissance and communication drones can't just be thrown into the meat grinder. Also, we have to factor in electronic countermeasures that may interfere with drones, and most ships have ample space to carry such equipment. Now, submarine warfare in the conventional sense would be far more of a stealth game than ever before, with large amounts of unmanned drones being able to deploy to patrol and hunt the seas. I think submarines using torpedoes would be for long-range strikes on targets using large amounts of torpedoes with advanced tracking and manoeuvrability, combined with submersible drones to basically use brute force numbers to overwhelm defenders. We may even see some odd uses of torpedoes, with Eurasia having cyborgs and Euruska having bioconstructs. These durable and expendable forces could be loaded into a torpedo and shot into high-value enemy vessels that have important resources, information, or even people they want to try and capture alive or in one piece. It would be a horrific task, but imagine being on a cargo ship. All around you, your escort vessels and drones are fighting and dying to protect you. Then you hear a loud thud and a strike to the ship. You and your crew run to the location of the sound, and all of a sudden the hull is burnt through. Smoke and the smell of burning fill the air. Then Eurasian cyborgs burst through the hole they've created and the carnage begins. I could also see dead drop bombers unloading cyborg payloads straight onto enemy vessels if they can get in range. I think we would see many a cyborg thunk off the ship's hull into the sea. If they do make it on board, well, the sailors and marines are going to fight back and answer the problem with the mighty Scar. But boarding actions would be extremely rare. Maybe if escort vessels are neutralised and the cargo ships have extremely high value targets on board, they would risk such an operation, but, like I say, very rare. I think the majority of attack subs would be mini-subs by today's standards, with either limited crew or completely autonomous, carrying far less torpedoes than a standard sub, maybe between 6 and 8, but deployed as opportunist killers to strike and escape. But if they're fully autonomous, they may be more kamikaze in nature, being cheap enough resource-wise to replace. Another attack tactic would be the Wolfpack style, where a group of these mini-subs attacking coordinated strikes to hit multiple ships and wreak havoc in such a short time that a response is near impossible. But being smaller would limit operational range, so they would most likely be used nearer the coast and shallower waters. Super heavy submarines could play a role, being able to carry 4 VTOL aircraft, even capable of deploying swarms of smaller drones, along with 4 stealthy midget submarines. These vessels would travel submerged to its area of operations, silently crossing hostile waters beneath the polluted seas. Upon reaching its destination, the submarine would surface under the cover of darkness or a storm maybe, deploying some of its VTOL aircraft into the sky. These aircraft would then begin wide-ranging aerial patrols, releasing their drone swarms to extend the submarine's surveillance reach even further. Together they would form a layered nest of eyes and ears, hunting, mapping and securing the ocean around them. And if the enemy is spotted, then the submarine would be able to launch a massive wave of torpedoes, and because of its insane size, maybe 10 to 20 torpedo tubes active at any time, so we've got a submarine here that can take on multiple ships just by itself. I also have to mention the potential for submersible aircraft carriers like our Supreme Commander. The technology to do it is definitely there in the Forever Winter, and be it drones or more advanced aircraft like air superiority or multi-role aircraft, if they are VTOL in nature, then it makes this kind of submersible very viable. and I could see many submersible style ships using the advantage of underwater travel to avoid the dangers of drones, then surfacing to strike quickly, then leaving before an effective response reaches them. And Euruska bioconstructs give some very unique potential assets for them to deploy. Instead of more common ship and submarine designs, Euruska could make things that are more natural in shape. We see this with their stalkers having a canine appearance. But in this case, something smaller, from a fish or a stingray, all the way up to massive sea leviathans. Now, why go this route over standard designs? Well, nature has shown and proven some of its creature shapes are superior to anything man produces in how they handle life at sea. And being a bioconstruct means no crew, no wasted space on cabins or mess halls. Something the size of a whale is going to be 100% built to its objectives, which is going to be destroying ships, but not always directly. The bioconstructs would make fantastic scouts, living in the depths, being basically one with nature, but appearing now and again to cause chaos on the European forces. These bioconstructs would also have a level of autonomy above even drones, with them being able to live off organic matter like the toothy mech. Just imagine a giant octopus-style monster that's unleashed into the depths, living and waiting for Europa ships and subs to cross its path. Then it goes to town, ripping them apart. But they are not limited to the more natural forms of killing, with Euruska being able to add built-in weapons like torpedoes, cutting tools, maybe even mines. Mixed in with the already lethal strength and size of these abominations, it's a very nasty mix. These bioconstructs also get the benefit of organic sensors like actual eyes and ears that are paired with machine sensors and together would give it superior environmental awareness. You can scramble electronic sensors, even blind an organic eye, but to do it all together is difficult, and I think dealing with these creatures would be the bane of Europa. I think the role of surface ships would be dramatically different from today. First of all, massed air attacks by drones would become more common, so they wouldn't be able to just rely on surface-to-air missiles, but anti-aircraft guns would have to come back into the equation. Flat guns would be very useful, being able to bring down large amounts of drones with a single shot. They're also far quicker to reload than missiles and can keep up a better rate of fire. We actually see something return to maybe like World War II air defence. Kinda reminds me of anti-aircraft batteries in Battlestar Galactica that not only stop hostile fighters but are able to destroy their missiles as well. Minesweepers and layers would become far more popular, with smart mines and deployable kamikaze drones becoming common. This also leads to ship up-armouring. With the fact that ships are probably going to take hits from drones with a sheer amount that can attack at once, we would see up-armouring of all types of vessels, even decoy ships that are designed to look full to the brim with supplies and attract as much attention as possible. And with decoy ships, we could see the return of fire ships that were vessels filled to the brim with explosives and sent on suicide missions to knock out enemy vessels. Seriously, check them out, it's amazing naval history. Well, I think we would see these in the form of bait fire ships that encourage the enemy to try and take them via boarding, and once in their control, detonate. The viability is debatable, but I think all three superpowers would try any tactic that might give them an edge. Battleships of the past may return with the fact that railgun technology is deployed on mechs such as the Euruskan medium mech, so a battleship could have super heavy railguns powered by advanced nuclear reactors. And with the technological advance in materials and weaponry, the railguns wouldn't rip themselves apart in a few shots. This then gives you a ship with massive long-range firepower that can keep a good continuous bombardment on naval and land targets. And the long reach of the railguns means you are firing around not tens of miles, but theoretically hundreds of miles. All I'm saying is we might finally see a railgun-armed Yamamoto battleship. Yes, a jelly bean can dream. Oh, a jelly bean can dream. Landing craft must have played a major component in the invasion of North America by Eurasia and Euruska. D-Day, but far more sci-fi. Picture the dead and rotten beaches of California. The aftermath of nuclear war still stings the sands. Europa must have had some fortifications and defences on the coast. There is no way that the entire invasion force was able to muster without any notice of the build-up. So defence forces with some fortifications would be present, and as the dead drop bombers and landing craft hit the beach, the bodies must have been stacked half a dozen feet high. The fact that the invasion was successful must have been on the backs of tens of thousands of dead in the initial landing phases alone, and it would make the opening scenes of Saving Private Ryan look pretty tame. And with drone-controlled ships, we could see a lot more firepower and equipment squeezed onto ships, making them far more resource efficient. As some larger ships of today's military need thousands of personnel to keep them running, something like a drone carrier of the Forever Winter might only need 100 actual crew, but being able to deploy thousands of drones. This brings the potential for colossal-sized navies that would make World War II engagements look tiny. And with food being one of the more valuable resources, the automation of jobs to save on personnel would be a priority. I wonder, with Eurasian cyborg tech, could we see humans bonded directly to the ship taking control of them with their own minds? I'm also thinking about repair and refit vessels being more important than ever with such a large amount of autonomous vessels and drones. They would need maintenance and repairs, It would be a gargantuan task, and we may see the inception of massive floating fortresses or mobile ports. These would be man-made islands, huge in size and scope, with all sorts of facilities ranging from repair and refueling stations to airstrips for long-range aircraft, and the all-in-one floating bases that can be a bastion for naval forces in that area. And maybe these floating fortresses in some cases would be totally geared towards combat. Slow and lumbering but bristling with firepower from super heavy railguns, anti-aircraft guns, long-range missiles, and even standard cannons that we see on the likes of tanks to deal with close-range enemy vessels. And these floating fortresses would have armour that make even a battleship envious. To actually sink something like this would require tactical nuke levels of firepower. Maybe a direct hit from a Moab, which is the mother of all bombs, which is a gigantic conventional warhead. And conventional naval fortifications and coastal forts would return, but with dozens feet thick reinforced concrete and the heaviest weapons they can in place. Their job would be not only to destroy enemy ships and aircraft, but to be so massively powerful they deter hostile navies coming close to them. They would require so many resources to destroy them that they would delay any type of naval invasion just being there. Maybe Europa should have built some of these to defend the western coast of North America, but, hindsight. And under the waves, bases on the seabed built for rearming and repairing submarines under the cover of the sea to keep them undetected would be common. They would be fortified and armed with large amounts of torpedo-based weapons, submersible drones and mines, not to mention a large amount of deadly submarines ready to bring the pain. The future of naval warfare is both cool and terrifying, with weapons big and small that can wreak havoc. All I know, it's not just the land that's locked in the forever war. The seas must suffer this fate as well. And whoever wins the battle for the waves may turn the tide in their favour and ultimately end this war. I also want to thank Vice Admiral Lizzie, self-proclaimed Mistress of the Sea. Very useful, a fan of the channel, and kind of came out of nowhere when I asked for help, and basically helped me write this piece by, giving me some information on what I've written. So very much thanks to that individual. Very thankful for their help. And obviously thank you to all the fans who kind of offered your help as well. It means a lot, as sometimes I'm out of my depth with this military knowledge. Just thought it'd be a cool video as well to talk about the Navy, the Forever Winter, because I'm not seeing anyone do it, and hopefully it's been a good topic. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and as always, have a beautiful evening.